as organizations are starting to see their internal infrastructure, their servers starting to come to a maturity standpoint where they're starting to age out, they're coming to the decision of, well, what do I do? Do I buy a new server or a bunch of new servers, or do I just move this stuff to somebody else like Microsoft to host that for us? And so that's where it brings us to this kind of this fork in the road of how do you determine, do I make that leap fully, moving all of my systems up to a provider, a cloud provider, or do I retain that information and that technology in my office and with my arms around it so I can see it in the closet?
Well, I think that the business leaders and decision makers are exactly right at a fork in the road. They're making this conscious decision based on operating expenditure versus capital expenditure. Which one is better for my business? If you're refreshing a gigantic server network infrastructure in your office, that is certainly a CapEx cost. Is that the right move for your business? And does that meet your future objectives? Versus, hey, you know what? We don't want to be in this server business in our closet anymore. Let's move our applications out. And as I've said for a long time, as the applications go, so go the network. A lot of times, one of these future planning and strategy conversations to have in the business is, what are our key business line applications doing? And what you're seeing in the industry as a whole from the manufacturer side is everyone's moving to subscription. Love the model. Wall Street loves the model. So everyone's going to go in that direction. I honestly, and I'll put on my future telling hat, you're not going to be able to buy on-premise software or non-subscription based software in the next 3 to 5 years from any provider. Everybody's moved that way, including Microsoft, including Intuit, including, SAP, all of the big ERPs do it. It's all a subscription. And so when you factor those costs and look at the scalability the cloud provides, it's almost a no choice decision. Like, the manufacturers are going to make you move into their cloud option. You're not going to really have a choice, but that lack of choice needs to be brought into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we tend to find is, like, when you're sitting down and you're trying to plan for your infrastructure for the next really 5 years, because that's what hardware lasts. It lasts about 5 years.
5-year warranty, like
5-year warranty. That's when stuff starts to fail and you're getting into the risky territory, right? So you have to sit down and look at your organization and say, okay, where does my organization, where does it fit in 5 years? Where do we see our growth happening in 5 years? What happens along the way, and basically try to make that prediction so that you can buy all of your equipment for that 5-year lifespan. And that's really hard to do.
One might say impossible, given the historical events, depending on when someone might be watching this. Besides those watching it live, if you were pre-global pandemic, you're making a 5-year plan, and then suddenly a global meltdown economic situation occurs. There's no planning for that. Mm-hmm. And if you had already made this massive capital investment prior to the pandemic coming in play, it's like building a 10-bedroom house and hoping you'll have 10 kids. You're building for the future when the future is unknown. And that's one of the risks of having a capital expenditure model and looking at this saying, okay, well, why is there a benefit to cloud? The benefit of cloud is it cheaper? Probably not. But does it allow me to infinitely scale up and down depending on what the economy does, what health crisis we have, what business crisis we might have? You're paying for that flexibility in the cloud, but at the end of the day, it's giving you infinite scalability and infinite ability to turn up and turn down.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and the feature sets too, right? So oftentimes when you would have, say, a line of business application that you had in your environment, on your network, in your server closet, right? Oftentimes those application updates or patches are applied, if you're on top of things, maybe quarterly, maybe once every couple of year or two, right? To get new feature upgrades or new version upgrades of these applications. Well, in the cloud, the provider is going to be responsible for adding these features, adding the security updates. All that stuff is handled behind the scene, and it's continuous, right? So you're basically paying a service fee, and all of these features are added over time, and it's continually updated, and it's continually, you know, all these features and all these security updates are going to be applied and maintained by the vendor, where when you're doing it yourself, you have to have somebody do that for you and be reliant on your IT support and the vendors to supply those. And so they're moving away from these big, service packs that you would see for an application. And they're trying to get it to a point where it's iteratively being updated and changed throughout the process. And so with that, there's the benefit of getting new features and new functionality of these applications all the time.